Hello and welcome to Should I Wish Someone Told Me, a weekly series of educational conversations where my guests and I talk about all of the shit that we wish someone told us at one point or another about various topics, all of which relate back to the most important topic of all, you, and figuring out who that person is, how to accept and even love that person so that you can be confident in who you are and live the life that you were born to live. I'm your host, Johnna Renée, certified evidence-based life coach specializing in behavioral change to help you be the person that you want to be. And joining us today, we have Adam Murauskas of Fix Your Picker. And we're going to be talking about shit I wish someone told me about why you can't get over them.
Ah,
Specifically focusing on why breakups suck so much, right? Like we've all been there, like we've all had a breakup and like they suck. There's no way to slice it. It's like moving. It's like it sucks. Um, our goal today is to help it make sense for you. And as you listen, I want you to think about what's true for you when it comes to moving through the breakup process, whether it be a current one or a past one or maybe a future one, so that you can have some tools to understand like what's happening and how to navigate that. So with that being said, let me introduce you to our guest for today. So Adam is a full-time relationship coach, writer, content creator, student, and teacher of all personal development. He moved to Panama with his wife in 2019 and launched fixyourpicker.com and has been helping people heal ever since. So you can discover fresh content daily on his social media at Fix Your Picker. And also he writes awesome blogs. So you can check those out there. And I'm super glad that we are here because I always love your content. And we've talked about this conversation. And I know that this is something that is a concern for so many people. And so I'm super excited to share what we're about to share. So is there anything else that you'd like to add before we get started?
no, I'm stoked, and this is something everyone can relate to. And there's a huge demand for this. People ask me all the time. I'm struggling with a breakup. I mean, as a relationship coach, that's when I meet people
Right.
when they're like and their ass is falling off, and they come to me. What's going on? How do I fix it? Why do I feel this way? So this is my jam. Let's get into it.
All right, cool. So with that being said, what is some shit you wish someone would have told you about why you can't get over them?
I think the best thing that anyone could have ever told me when I was younger is that 100% of relationships end eventually. It could be in a week or a lifetime, but at some point they all end. And and oftentimes when it does end, I mean, depending on if you've been married for 70 years and it ends, that's a little bit of a different story. But you've been with someone for a couple years, it ends, it sucks, and 6 months later you're usually fine. You're usually hanging out with friends or living your life or like grocery shopping, and you look around and go, oh, I can breathe. I don't feel like I'm dying. Like, I survived. Everything is okay. It always feels way more catastrophic when it's happening. In the moment, it can actually feel like you're dying.
Yeah.
But you won't die.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's something that we really get stuck in, right? Like we get stuck in that shittiness, right? Like those ruminating thoughts. And, whenever that happens, like what does that tend to look like based on your experience with clients and like your experience with yourself, whenever we get caught in that ruminating process or that experience, if you will?
Yeah. uh it's different for everyone. I mean, everyone kind of does their own thing, but definitely rumination. I mean, there's a lot of people who want to fix it, get back together, try it again, let's stay connected. There's a lot of stalking that happens,
The
a tremendous
stalking.
amount of
So
yes.
yeah, like we have all, and I don't mean stalking like driving past their house at night. And maybe that's what people used to do, but now we have social
That
media.
happens, that still happens sometimes,
It
but
still
yes, social
happens.
media, it makes it way easier to stalk.
Yeah. And I read something the other day that was like your brain can't tell that like that's not in person. So it's as if you're still like seeing them and like reopening the wound there.
Yes,
And
absolutely. And that's what's going on when you break up with someone. There's a highly activated attachment system. It feels like abandonment, and I'm not good enough, and I'm gonna die. Like, your body feels threatened because this person was meeting so many of your fundamental human needs. And so that rug is pulled out from under you. And so your nervous system is like, yeah, we're probably dying right now.
yeah.
Don't just stand there, do something about it. And so people spiral into all these shoulda, coulda, wouldas and trying to figure out what they can do to fix it. Or if they're not trying to fix it, they're beating themselves up, shaming themselves, going into morbid reflection and these, kind of spirals of resentment and self-pity and things like this. And so I had an experience where I had a rough breakup, and I'm type 1 diabetic, you know this, and my blood sugars were off the charts. Like my body was shutting down. My physical body, I couldn't eat or sleep right. Like my actual body was shutting down, and I was like, this is not good. And I had friends like come like feed me and like tell me to test my blood. And so I needed a support team to actually keep me alive. So this is
Yeah.
a very real situation for a lot of people.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that you needed a support system, because I think so many times what it looks like for people is that they like retreat and step away, right? Like they're like, this is too
Yes.
much, it's overwhelming. If I push the people away, then I control the variable and also affirm the narrative of not being worthy. And so it's something where that retreat, that isolation is one of the ways that, yeah, like it can show up. And I know that that used to be true for me. I was like a pusher away. And in this recent situation that I was dealing with, I felt that one of the ways that I could explain, because what you mentioned, all relationships end, is for me, it felt like, and what it looked like was trying to like hold on to sand, but like
Mm,
it was just slipping through my fingers. Like I was trying to hold on to it so hard, like so tightly, but no matter how I moved my hands or tried to, cup it, like it was running out. And so it was something, yeah, you like that one, don't you?
I'm writing it down. That's great.
So yeah, I was trying to like, oh yeah, just clutch, like hold on to sand. Like it sucked. And there was nothing that I could do. And it was something where even as much like personal development, I'm bringing this up because I know a lot of times people are like, but like, how did I manifest this? Like, but like, what did I do to deserve this kind of a thing? And for me, as someone who I would say has been working personally on my own development for a long time, even then it was something where I felt kind of helpless. I was,
Mm.
like I said, I was like, I see the sand, but like it's running out. Like, what do I do? Kind of a thing.
That sense of powerlessness is the
Yeah.
worst. And I think this is true for all living organisms. Like
Yeah.
no animal wants to feel powerless. And when they do, like it could be a cute little penguin or something, but it feels powerless, it'll bite your face, like
Yeah.
people have this, and animals have this stress response, and we freak out. Our lizard brain takes over, and then who knows what the hell's going to happen. This is why people do insane shit after a breakup, like
Yeah.
completely, even that they can look at themselves and go, man, that was insane, I can't believe I did that. Like, I slashed their tires, or I stalked, or I showed up at their job. You're like, this is
Yeah.
completely unacceptable, not upstanding human behavior, and I did it, and I can't explain it.
Yeah. And something else you mentioned too, one of the ways it shows up can be like like laying in bed, like eating granola bars for 2 weeks. And
For
like
2 weeks straight, just granola bars, that's it.
just granola bars and wallowing in like the self-pity, the shame, the catastrophizing. Like there's so many different ways that it can show up. And most of them are bad. Most of them are negative
Yeah,
because
they're all pretty bad. Yeah.
these aren't like healthy ways of coping, because no, this is shit that no one told us. No one told us
Mhm.
100% of relationships end, right? Until you just did right now. So thank you for that. No one told us like, hey, when this happens, it's going to really hurt. And here's some ways to navigate that. And so we do start to go into, like you said, like that spiral. And I
Mhm.
mean, obviously, like that's not good, but what's the real cost with that? Like, why is that spiraling like such a problem when it comes to, us and like our emotional and mental health and like our overall well-being?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say that I like the word cost. I'm not sold on the word problem,
Mhm.
because I think anything is only a problem if you decide it's a problem. Um,
Mm.
and this is, I don't know, this is getting a little too philosophical,
No, I
but
like it. Bring it on. Bring it on.
there's a
Got the
tremendous
coffee.
amount of value in pain and suffering. I mean, the pain is my marketing campaign. Like, I don't meet people unless they're in pain for the most part. People
Right.
come to me and say, "Oh my God, I can't keep doing this," or "My marriage just melted down," or whatever. They're in pain, and pain is this motivating force that convinces people that, you know what, I can't just stay the same. It's time to do something different.
Right.
So Is it a problem? I don't know. It's up to you to decide if these behaviors are a problem for you. For me, I tend to not grow until after I'm badly mangled, and I'm like, and I tap out, and I'm like, I'm dying, and then I'm like, oh, okay, it's time for personal growth.
Mhm.
You know. Um, so yeah, I don't know if it's a problem or not, but yes, the cost of all these negative spiral behaviors, we can look at for sure the cost. These behaviors tend to exacerbate our feelings, our negative feelings, and confirm just how pathetic and unworthy and unlovable we are, right? And like you said, we tend to isolate. And this, I mean, again, you can see this. There's so much to learn by studying animals. When an animal is hurt, it'll retreat by itself and go lick its wounds. Like this is just animal behavior. And as humans, we have an opportunity to rise above that, to do things differently.
Yes.
But yeah, when we retreat, the isolation, it just prolongs this process of grieving and loss, and shame is a thing that I always say this: shame thrives in isolation,
Mhm.
right? And the other aspect of this is healing happens. I mean, most trauma can be argued as relational trauma. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, you can only heal that relationally. If there's a breach in your belief that human relationships can be safe, the way you heal that is by cultivating safe relationships with other people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of costs going on there. And then I think the last one I'll say is that excessive focus on the other person or
Mhm.
on the relationship
Mhm.
is a huge distraction from what you can do, because you're not powerless. Your self-love and self-care, self-awareness, to healing, your ability, your agency to take care of yourself, to reach out for help, to do things. If
Yeah.
we're just focused on, this what went wrong and just staring at the gaping hole, um, we're not empowered. We kind of create this victimhood, and just rub it all over ourselves and lay there with our granola bars.
Exactly. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it was something that and I have to remind myself as well when it comes to things. And I remind like my clients and like my friends as they're going through relational concerns. And yeah, I have to remind them like instead of trying to figure out and spend so much time investing in like what happened and why did they do this, instead ask yourself like what do you want to do about it? And so that does require like let's look at it a bit like what did happen. But I like what you mentioned about, whenever that's where all of our time and energy goes, it's something that it's like, but you're the one, if you want to take the power back, so to speak, if you want to, decide what it is that you can do from this to heal, to grow, to, like you said, like create like new healthy relationships or different relationships that are something that will disprove this belief that they're unsafe, then what things can you do, like how can you respond, like what can you do with this information that you have? And so I talk about, yeah, like leveraging your experiences to get the future that you want, because as humans, like you said, we have our neocortex, not the reptilian brain. Like we've got this brain that's able to discern between like, hey, that's what was, this is what's now, this is what I want. And so it's a matter of tapping into that. And I think that that's so important for people because we oftentimes, like you said, get stuck on the, but why? Like, let me stare at it. Like,
Yeah.
let me just look at the wound. And it's like, yes, but like, let's not, let's also look at other things. Let's also look at like what you can do
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
situation. And so, yeah, I think that that's very important as well. So thank you for bringing that up.
And I like to say, circling back to this idea of a problem, is that this there's a spectrum, right? There's this on one side, you have the ability to just be completely consumed by a breakup for weeks or months and let it deteriorate your life.
Right.
And on the other end of the spectrum, you can be like, I don't need nothing from nobody, and like whatever, and just numb, distract, self-medicate, suppress it, go hop in the sack with somebody else, just ignore it and hope it goes away. And healthy is usually somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So, I think the best advice is feel the breakup. Like it's gonna suck, and it's important for you to feel those feelings, right?
Mhm.
That's all. Feelings just want to be felt. That's all they want from you. And if you don't feel them, they're gonna stand outside your door and keep knocking.
Yeah.
um, So feel those damn things, and it's part of the grieving process. You know, it's part of the closure and what needs to happen. It has to move through your body. And so I think people believe that that personal growth and healing and recovery is like a pain management program, a discomfort management program, and it's not really true,
Right.
right? Like pain is an important part of life, and so I think what it does is it helps us to differentiate between, like, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Mm.
And so feel the pain, go into it, but then when you just start lathering it up, you know, and kind of setting up camp in this pain, and just, you know, just eating it, and just fanning the flames, you know, when you start prolonging it longer than it needs to be,
Right.
that's when it's good to have some tools and a support system to say, okay, that's enough of that. Like, let's get you back on your feet, and let's move through this. And it doesn't have to be like good vibes only, toxic positivity, you don't need him anymore type shit. It can be like, hey, this sucks, and you shouldn't be eating granola bars exclusively. You know what I mean? Like, let's piece you back together. You
We
know,
need
we can
some
do
more
this.
nutritional content
Yes, absolutely.
other
So
than carbs and hopped up sugars.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one thing that I wanted to mention, like on that note, you had made a comment whenever we were preparing for this conversation, and I just wanted to quote you: handle your feelings appropriately so they don't handle you.
Yes,
I
that's
think
what
that
we're talking about here.
yeah, I
Like,
think that that's so good.
if you're running from your feelings, um they're still there. You know, it's almost like if there's a fire in your house and the alarm is going off, and you're like, oh, fuck this, and you take the batteries out of your smoke alarm, you didn't put the fire out. You just you just turned off the alarm. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so um not feeling your feelings is pulling the batteries out. Oh, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to feel it. But you're not dealing with the actual problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that
So important.
analogy.
Yeah.
And so, okay, it's so good. And we've also talked about like, okay, we all do get stuck on like the relationship. And let's talk about why. Because we've talked about, you know, the cost with it, but like,
Mhm.
why do we have that death grip on the relationship? Like, why do we get so fixated on like this one relationship or this one person? Like, why? Just like help us out.
Yeah. There's a long list of reasons.
Lay them on us.
Yeah, I think the first kind of big picture meta philosophical kind of thing, that may be difficult to wrap your head around, is that oftentimes the problem isn't the problem. Like, oftentimes the problem is a symptom of something, and if we don't actually look at what the real problem is underneath, we're just putting band-aids on band-aids. You know, we're not actually dealing with the situation. So, for example, like, drinking too much is not a problem, that's a solution. You know, some kind
Mhm.
of social lubricant, or numbing, or escaping, or some kind of, I don't want to feel this way, or I want to fit it. Like, it's a solution for something, it's not a problem. Or dating shitty people. You know, that's, it may look like a problem for sure. A lot of people come to me, say, oh, I can't stop dating this type of person, this is my problem. No, it's not. When we dig into it, it's a solution to your fear of vulnerability, your fear of rejection, or not being good enough. There's something that you're using this behavior to solve. And so I think that's the level of introspection we need if we want to actually come up with some real solutions and some deep understanding of why people do what they do. It's not always as simple as it seems. Oftentimes the thing that's on the surface is just, it's window dressing, or it's covering something up, or it's just like, if people feel sad, it's easier to be angry, you know, to just be pissed off and, oh, I can't believe what you did, because sad is like vulnerable and weak, and like no one wants to feel that. It's so much more empowering to stomp your feet and slam doors and yell, and, you know,
Right.
but it's not anger.
That's what I
Like,
call one of the acceptable emotions.
yeah, yeah, you're emoting anger, but that's not what you're feeling. You
Right.
know, there's fear and sadness and vulnerability underneath of that. So a lot of this is like, let's find out what's underneath of this situation. So let's start digging a little bit, shall we?
I've
So
got
I
my
think
phone.
Number one, I think this is kind of low hanging fruit. The dissolution of a relationship feels like evidence that you're an unlovable piece of shit, you know. And so no one wants to face that. Like when the relationship ends, it's like, oh no, this means this means I'm trash. I know a woman who her marriage was clearly terrible, but she had a very pretty life on paper and a great job and this, like, you know, on paper, like her resume looked great and her marriage was this kind of show, but it was hollow. It was terrible. Anyway, she comes home from a work trip one day. He's gone. Stuff is gone. He sends her an email. I want a divorce. An email. Right. This is the level. They were married for a decade. He sends her an email. Right. So I shouldn't be laughing, but damn, here's what happened. She was fighting for this marriage for like a solid 6 months. She didn't see him again, like did not see him again, but was scrapping, hanging on. I can fix it. I can work on this. I can, you know, what do I need to do different? And she was fighting for her life. Now, was she fighting for a beautiful marriage? No, she was not at all. She was fighting for the idea of a beautiful marriage that was clearly not there. I mean, because you could look at it and say, oh, someone's fighting for the marriage. That's a good thing. That could be. In this case, that wasn't it. She was fighting against this idea that people were going to find out that she wasn't perfect and her life wasn't perfect.
Ooh.
That, yeah. And that was very, very uncomfortable for her to look at. And this is,
I feel like a lot of people listening right now might also be like, oh shit.
yeah.
Like,
yeah, this is a serious thing. No, I met a guy who he caught his wife cheating on him. He's got a couple kids, like family, married a long time, caught his wife cheating on him. He grabbed a kitchen knife and slit his throat and both of his wrists. Right. And, you know, she called 911, you know, and they patched him up. But I met him with bandages on his throat and wrists saying, I need help with this codependency. And I was like, I know that's right. You know what I mean? So I didn't say that to his face. But the point is, this is serious shit. People get really caught up. Their identity, like their life is tied up into relationships. And so when there's a threat to this relationship, it's a threat to their life. It feels that way. It really does. And people bump themselves off when a relationship goes south. Like this happens. And
I feel, and I appreciate that you bring this up. And that's why we're having this conversation, because like so many of us tie our identities into things, and relationships are one of the top ones that we tie ourselves into. And so
our job and our relationship.
Right. And so, I think that hopefully for anyone listening and watching, this is really eye-opening. Like, you know, are you like in it for them, right? Like, is it like the person, or is it like this idea of what that means and like what that says about who you are? Because you're tying that into, you know, being such a significant part of your identity. And what you really need to do is create a relationship with yourself. Because like, you know, two parts, like people, it's always, you know, there's this whole notion of like finding the one, and like that grinds my gears, because I'm like, there's 7 billion people on this planet. There are a lot of ones like that you can get along with. And so it's a matter of, not finding like the one, but finding one that you want to actually work on a relationship with. And I like to speak to it in the terms of, you know, how people speak about like we have to work on the business and not just in the business. Same thing with relationships, I think. And like, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the relationship coach, but I think that that's something where we see these happy, healthy relationships, and like those take work. Like it's something where like that doesn't just happen. Like people have developed these tools and like these skills to help each other and to also like help themselves, so that like while like they, you know, are helping that other person, it's not because they need to, it's not because that other person, you know, defines who they are. It's because with that relationship, they are able to, you know, have like an add-on, you know, as to who they are with their sense of self, is kind of like the way they like to think about it. But so I just wanted to point that out, because I think that's important to note, because like so many people, like we do hold on like with this death grip so tightly, because that loss of that other person is, whenever we're in that position, a loss of our sense of self, because it's a loss of like who we are and our identity, because we put so much in to being the boyfriend or the girlfriend or the husband or the wife, or like whatever the case may be. And so yeah, I think that's what I have to say.
Yeah, it's a huge part of people's identity, and I like what you said about the one. You know, I like the idea that like you are the one. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
if you're not the one, no one else is going to be the one. And
Yes.
so, yeah, a healthy relationship isn't like, you know, finding a $20 bill on the sidewalk. You're not going to find a healthy relationship isn't a noun. You know what I mean? It's a process. It's a thing you build, you create. Yeah, it's not just this thing to go look for. I mean, that's, you know, people are out unicorn hunting and like, you know, I mean, I guess it's important to do that for a little bit when you're young and then be like, oh shit, unicorns don't exist. And then you grow up, you know, you try things differently. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
go ahead.
Are we ready to keep digging?
We're ready to keep digging. Yeah. Tell us the next thing.
Okay. And we kind of touched on this, that breakups trigger this feeling of powerlessness,
Mm-hmm.
which takes us, you know, takes most people, especially I would argue that most people have some kind of trauma, right? I mean, like being birthed is pretty traumatic, you know? And so there's a lot of different, you know, and I think there's a misconception that trauma is like, you know, being kidnapped and watch your family get murdered or something. Certainly that's traumatic. But just chronic disconnection, just parental misattunement, and there's all kinds of different levels of abuse, neglect, abandonment, enmeshment. There are things that are traumatic, not because of the event themselves, but because what happens inside of you as a result of that event. So like just being left alone with your pain is a traumatic experience for a child. And I mean, if we're talking about powerlessness, when is it that everyone is the most powerless they're likely to ever be in their life? And it's when they're kids, when they're little, helpless, 100% dependent kids. And as kids, that trauma occurs often with our primary attachment figures, our caregivers and our parents. And so when we're in a primary attachment relationship with a significant other, that is the realm where we're most likely to have all those feelings of abandonment or abuse or whatever triggered. And so in a breakup, we feel powerless, and then we're like an abandoned 5-year-old kid again, or whatever age we were when we felt these feelings, when daddy left, or when, you know, my older brother tied me up and pissed on me, or whatever like traumatic thing that happened. You know, because I work with a lot of people, a lot of clients, and I mean, people that you look at and you're like, wow, these are successful people, like neurologists and doctors and therapists and athletes and fiduciaries, all these people that you look at their resume and you're like, man, these are wonderful, well-adjusted human beings. And I talk to them, and their childhood is like, yeah, you know, I was beat, or I was this or that. And just I've heard some just brutal stories, and I've come to find out that I think most people have some traumatic shit in their childhood that they just got away from. They said, hey, I'm going to grow up, learn how to be an adult, get a job, pay the bills, and forget about it. But you don't forget about it. Well, your body doesn't. Your brain, you can convince yourself to, you know, kind of dissociate and forget about those things. But when you experience some type of threat into your attachment system, your body goes, holy shit, you know, and you're a powerless kid again. So absolutely, breakups trigger these powerless trauma responses.
The Body Keeps the Score. That's a book that like I talk about all the time. And yeah, that's like the way that I think about it. Like you said, like the body doesn't forget. I think of it as, it's like, okay, I've got to clean my room, right? Like it's dirty, but instead of actually like cleaning it, you just kind of like shove everything in the closet or like under the bed. And it's like, that's still there. Like
Still there.
it's still, yeah, like we didn't actually clean it. You did take it out of sight. but yeah, that's there's not
Definitely
space
there.
for anything else. And so yeah.
A lot of people have no idea that there's wreckage in their childhood either, right? Because I mean, we're all born into this childhood, we just assume is normal. We got
Right.
nothing else to compare it to.
Right.
So, you know, like dad's missing for 3 days, or like, mom is pounding bottles of wine or like whatever's going on. We're like, yeah, this is fine. This is totally normal.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just hurry up and grow up. And yeah, a lot of people never do a crime scene investigation. They never go back and go, wait a second, that shit was super unnatural. What was going on in my household as a child? So it's a great opportunity to take a look at that stuff. And that's what happens with relationship coaching. People say, oh, I have relationship problems. And I go, oh, okay, let's talk about it, and then we dig into it, and it's not as simple as like, I need to date better people. It's like, you were abandoned as a kid, and you're terrified of vulnerability, and you've got self-abandonment and codependency. Like there's deep issues in
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and so breakups again suck and are an opportunity to take a look and say, okay, what's going on here? Do I see a pattern?
Yeah.
You look at your string of relationships and go, okay, all these failed relationships, what's the common denominator? It's me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what can I do differently? So
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll talk more about that stuff.
Yeah, we'll talk about that stuff. Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned, and this is right in alignment with that, relationships are distractions from dealing with our own shit. Like we oftentimes use
Yep.
them as, and I think unconsciously so, like we aren't even aware of the fact that we're doing it. But if we can look at that other person and be like, well, they did this and that made me feel this way, and like point the finger and place the blame, then that's our solution. Like you said, like that's the solution to like not doing the difficult work and really looking at ourselves. Because oftentimes what I think that, what happens when it comes to like, looking in the mirror and like looking at yourself, it's that like it's terrifying to realize
Oh yeah.
like what's inside and like who you really are. If that's something that like you don't know, like you've been living with this person for however many, like 30, 40, 20 years, and if you don't know who they are, whenever it comes time to look at that, that's scary.
Absolutely terrifying, for sure. I think all addictions, all compulsive behaviors are this resistance to existence, you could say, like a resistance to being human, to having feelings, to having needs, to looking in the mirror. I love this quote from Blaise Pascal, who said that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Just being with ourselves is so terrifying and painful for a lot of people. So absolutely, having a distraction is fantastic. And this is why people work too much or there's all kinds of habits that we compulsively chase after. One of them being relationships.
Yeah.
And then also, really, a breakup can serve that same purpose. Oh, this breakup, and I can't believe this, and
And then you
focusing
get sympathy.
yes, yeah, it meets a lot of needs, and yeah, you can create a whole thing out of this breakup and kind of like go on tour with it, and hang out with this breakup for a long time and milk it for everything it's worth until you find something else to distract you, which is oftentimes a new relationship.
Yeah.
And so I go from like focusing on my ex and what they did wrong and the terrible things, all this stuff. And then, oh, there's a new magical person in my life. And there's no space in between for me to go, hey, what's going on with me?
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. And one of the other things you mentioned as to why we have this death grip, because like you said, like there's so many reasons, but another reason you mentioned that I want to point out is that they're super inconvenient. Breakups are
Yes.
super inconvenient.
Very, very much so.
So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, a relationship is this thing that we kind of weave this tapestry of our lives together. And so unraveling that thing just takes a lot of work, especially if you're married and you've changed names and you have children and you own a house together. Like there's just a lot there.
There's a lot of paperwork. Like there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, it's lawyers and fees and money and time and like co-parenting. Like, oh my goodness, it is a supremely inconvenient thing to break up. So that's another reason why people are willing to go to any length to salvage a relationship. And yeah, and I think many relationships are salvageable if you have two people that are willing to own their shit and work on it, and you know, move the needle together to work to move closer together. And you know, that's what I tell people when they start dating. You know, we make a list of like the top characteristics you're looking for in a partner, boil it down to a top 5, but always the number 6 thing is you got to have someone that's willing to work on themselves in some way. If someone thinks that like this is as good as it gets, like I don't need to improve anymore, this perfect thing, and you just need to love me now because I'm so great, like that's probably a sociopath. You probably should not date that person.
Yeah, there's an advice for everyone. That's probably not someone to enter into a relationship with. And I can attest to that. Like I um was in a relationship where we lived together, and it was something where nothing was really wrong, right? Like we didn't hate each other, we didn't fight, but like you said, it was something where I was just kind of like, this is as good as it gets. Like this is fine, like whatever. And it was something where neither one of us, said anything for a long time, because it's like, well, you got to move out. And, we lived in a high rise. So it's like, you have to rent the elevator, and then, like, who's going to leave? And then
Hmm.
also like the friend groups, like, what do we do about that? Like we
Ugh.
have like wedding RSVPs, and like we have future plans. And so, yeah, it's a process, because it's not, I mean, we refer to it, and we can refer to it as like ripping the Band-Aid off, but I'm like, it's a lot. Like, it's not just a Band-Aid. Like that thing, it's like ripping like
It's a
stitches
body
out.
bandage.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
it's a lot of
there's a
shit.
cast, some splints.
Yeah, we need to get like
It's
a
a lot.
saw.
It's a
Like
whole lot.
you gotta like
Hmm.
re-physical therapy the leg. Like, yeah, it's like a whole ass thing. And so another thing that you mentioned in that same, breadth is that we as humans love comfort and certainty.
Yeah,
And
yeah. There's a Virginia Satir quote that I love. She says that people prefer the certainty of misery over the misery of uncertainty.
whew, say it again. Say it again.
People prefer the certainty of misery. They would rather be absolutely certain of their misery than the misery of uncertainty. Humans are just certainty seeking missiles, right? Like
Yeah.
we need this security and this safety, and we want things to be exactly the way they are. And this is why there's this confirmation bias, and people, hang out in echo chambers and stuff.
Hmm.
We like to be right about things, and we like
Hmm.
things to stay put, and so breakups are just these huge shifts in our world, and all the things that we thought we had control over, or we thought were safe and secure and nailed down, and this is a thing that's forever. um that's terrifying to lose that, right? Like, I mean, we live in a very impermanent world. Like everything is fleeting, and humans tend to spend their entire lives trying to make shit permanent, which is, it's kind of funny, but I understand it. Like I get it. It makes sense, but whew, creates a lot of claw marks on stuff that we're just
Yeah,
hanging on to.
that's a great way of
Um,
putting it. Yeah, I'm like, I mean, yeah, I get it. And also it's like nothing is certain. And so
yeah,
I mean, we can go like that's a whole last another conversation. But yeah, I love what you said about like there's a lot
yep,
of
for
claw marks.
sure.
Like you're right. We do like try to hold on to those anchors, and it's something where
Hmm.
yeah, like there's a Chris Farley thing where he's like, it's in Tommy Boy, where he like has the biscuit, and he's like, they're talking about why he can't give a good presentation. And he's like, I just get really excited. I try to like hold on to the biscuit, but then like I ruin it. And I think that that's kind of like what so many people, I'm not saying that like we ruin things, but I'm saying like I think that that's what we try so hard. We're trying to like hold on to this thing, and we end up, like you said, like mangling it, and, like leaving marks on it. And it's like at the end of the
Hmm.
day, like yeah, it's something where we couldn't really control it anyway. So it's kind of like riding the wave and just learning how to navigate and come with like roll with what comes and roll with the punches, if you will. So with all
Yeah,
of
I
that,
always have this image of trying to grip a butterfly. Like
yes,
this relationship is this beautiful, delicate thing that exists, and it's like just clutching the butterfly and just murdering it.
yeah, yeah,
Or another nature example. I was talking to a client yesterday about like trying to pry open a flower, like bloom, damn it, like with a crowbar, like trying to rip open a flower bud and get it to, like, it's not how it works. You can't force these things.
That's a great example. And
But
so
so
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was going to say,
No.
so in that vein, um, like, how do we do it then? So how do we get over them? Like, how do we relinquish this death grip, and how do we move forward?
Yeah. Um, well, there's a lot of things we can do. I want to mention this before we dig into the particulars, that love and belonging are irreducible human needs, right? These are things that they're not nice to haves, they're needs.
Right.
And so whoever meets these needs becomes the biggest influence in our lives, and so this is another reason why breakups are so hard, because this is like, we've assigned this value to this person as like the most important meter of the needs, the emotional attachment needs that I have. Like, this is the person who does that for me. But two, yeah, we have to learn how to get those needs met in other places. If when a relationship ends, yes, it sucks, grieve it, feel the feelings, and back to this idea of having a support group and some friends. Like, we have to connect with people, we have to reconnect. One of my favorite expressions is, one man is no man, right? You can't just be by yourself. And this is why solitary confinement in prison, like, people are already incarcerated and that kind of sucks, but if you really want to ruin their soul, you put them in the hole. You put them in solitary confinement. It's the worst thing you could possibly do to somebody. So after a breakup, when something inside of you is like, let's retreat and be alone, like, you're running into the burning building. Like, please don't do that. I mean, yes, take some time for yourself and whatnot, but get reconnected with people as soon as you can. And so that leads into this. How do we get over them? Is that we have to reconnect with people. We have to take a look at, hey, this person was meeting a lot of my needs. And this is the thing too, that a lot of people have no idea what their damn needs are. And like, the school system and probably most people's parents don't actually teach them this. People think they need like air, food, and water, and clothes. I mean, I don't know. People talk about themselves like a house plant or something. We have a lot of complex emotional needs for acceptance and belonging and peace and authenticity and safety and security, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, if I don't feel safe, I'm doing lizard brain shit all day long. Like, I need safety. I absolutely need safety in my relationships and in my job and, my neighborhood, whatever. Like, I have to feel safe. When people don't feel safe, that's when they do crazy stuff. So getting over someone, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, a reminder, like, breakups are supposed to suck. They're supposed to feel awful. And so please allow yourself to feel those feelings. I had a breakup. And in fact, I'll preface it by saying, I was really good at not feeling at one point in my life. I was good at stuffing things, just ignoring it, suppressing it, like, whatever, I don't need anybody, just kind of hardened. I mean, I was raised by a Marine father who was, had that like toxic masculinity, fucking man up kind of stuff. And so I learned how to shut it all down, which is a trauma response. It's taking the battery out of the smoke detector. Like, I learned how to do that. So I remember after this one breakup, I was like, I'm not running from this. I'm gonna feel this. And so I made a playlist of like 2 hours of just sad breakup songs, and sat in my car and just listened to it and just wept, and just like leaned into it. Just felt, it was like, I need to feel this, because if I don't feel this, I'm gonna do it again with the neighbor. I'm gonna go find somebody and just recreate the same thing, and I'll be back here again anyway. So if you want to get over them, number one, feel it. The only way to get around it is through it, and be prepared for that to suck, and that's fine, right? Like, this is the first noble truth of Buddhism, is that like, life kind of sucks sometimes, basically. And it's not a typo, it's not an error, it's not why is this happening to me? Because you're
Right.
human. That's why. Like, welcome to Earth. Shit sucks sometimes. It's fine. There's nothing wrong. Just cry. Feel bad. Call a friend. Like you'll get through this. Again, this shit I wish somebody would have told me. You're definitely gonna survive this experience.
Yeah.
When those feelings come up, they feel permanent. Like this is the end of my life, and it's this is it for me. So no, feelings aren't facts. Like they feel that way, but you'll get through it. So the 5 stages of grief, there's this denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. These are non-linear. You could bebop around between these things for weeks or months or years, whatever. Like, and you could be like, I'm over them, and be over them, and then something comes up, and then you're like, oh my God, and you're feeling it again. It's fine. It's fine. This is the process.
It's
like,
funny because it's true. It's funny.
It is.
True.
Yeah. I'm fine. It's not an issue. But like, you see a Kibbles commercial, and you think about the dog that you shared, and you're weeping at the Meow Mix commercial or whatever it is. Like stuff comes up, and it's fine. I think being human in general is just a sloppy ass experience, and people want to make it look all neat and crispy, and it's not. It's really not. We got to give ourselves grace and be patient with ourselves. But yeah, the grieving process is huge because, like we talked about, yes, you're grieving the loss of this relationship. You're grieving your identity, who you are with this person. There's the friend group. There's this perceived future together that, hey, we were going to do this and travel there and have kids or whatever. Like all of that, you're looking at like, oh my God, this is all just going down in flames right now. And so allow yourself to feel those feelings and go through that process and let it be sloppy. Absolutely let it be sloppy. That's fine. I think we spend a lot of time trying to like be these perfectly healed, whatever, kind of like robots almost.
Right. Like in this nice, neat little packages and boxes, and like, well, here's my sadness, here's my anxiety. This is the box for my depression. But yeah, you're right. Like, be messy. It's if you need to eat granola bars in bed for a couple of days, I mean, so be
yes,
like,
yes, absolutely.
Like we said, let's not do it like for a couple months.
Yeah,
for a couple days.
But, yeah, and you'll see this with people. Like you said, people want to compartmentalize stuff. Like, notice anytime you see somebody get emotional or start crying, what do they say? I'm sorry.
Yep.
They start, oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be feeling this way, or like, oh, like crying in front of someone is just like you showed them your ass or something. Right. It's like this terrible thing. Like, be human. You're totally allowed to be human. Please give yourself permission to be human.
Yeah.
Right. And so, more brass tacks on getting over someone is, a lot of times it's good to just detox from them, to go no contact, to block them. Because no contact doesn't just mean, don't go to their work and, or talk to them. No contact means don't lurk on their social media, like zero, like just remove yourselves from them, especially for particularly awful breakups and relationships where it's like, it's good to I like the word detox, to detoxify from that environment. It's almost like if you were in a burning building, like if you get out of the burning building, like don't stand there and like warm yourself by the flames or like look in the windows for shit you can salvage. Like just get out of there. Go, like your nervous system is spracked right now. Go take care of yourself. Get away from this thing.
Yeah, go take a shower, hydrate, change your clothes, like you smell like smoke.
Yeah. Get see a doctor, check your lungs, whatever. Deal with that, and then you can come sift through the rubble later. Like take some time to just go no contact, get away, unfollow, unsubscribe, unfriend, everything. Just get away from this person. And so for people who, and again, that's not for everybody. So we're going to throw out a bunch of ideas and things here. Take what works for you and leave the rest. Different strokes for different folks. But for people who don't go the scorched earth, no contact kind of route, people who are like, navigating this thing and need to be in contact with their ex, please do not send any emotional content via text or email. It's just not, if you can avoid it, like please don't do that, because a text message, um, it's not effective. It's not an effective way to communicate anything of emotional importance. And so I tell people, just don't do that. It's just not. Talk to them on the phone, leave them a voice message, see them in person or whatever. But like having a conversation via text is terrible. I mean, have you ever had a heated debate with someone via text and it went well?
No, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, oh shit, like I've sent emotional contact via text, like, yeah. Um, no, like I've never had a heated debate. Like it's my keyboard takes a hit, like I take a hit, like nothing gets
Yeah.
resolved. It's annoying because there isn't an actual exchange, right? Because it's like, well, they're not
Yeah.
in front of me, I can respond later, kind of a thing. And it's like you can, and also like we're in this now. Um, I've been the one to be like, well, I don't have to respond right now. And so anyway, yeah, that's just to really serve as a testament to your point. Yeah.
Yeah, technology can become this wall that we're just like throwing hand grenades over the top, and we don't even know who's on the other side. It's just this impersonalized, cold shit fit that,
Yeah.
we have this meltdown, and use technology to basically slow motion the conflict, just drag it out and make it
Yeah.
painfully slow and terrible. Like, just please don't do that to yourself. And
Yeah.
so,
Good advice. Noted. I feel seen.
yeah.
So noted.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And again, surround yourself with safe, supportive, loving people. Like that's so important to do that, any way that you can. If that's friends or family, or if your family sucks and your friends don't live nearby, like there's a therapist, a coach, somebody, like just find somebody that you can talk to that feels like a safe person, that we have to connect with someone else. I mean, and this goes for anything. Like, even if I'm just like in a bad mood, I'll call my best friend. We'll talk for 5 minutes, and then we're giggling and telling jokes and stuff. And it's connecting with another person. I mean, so this is co-regulation.
Right.
We can help regulate each other's nervous systems, because when we're dysregulated, we don't have access to our thoughts and our emotions. It's just emotional drive. It's fight or flight, freeze, survival crap going on. We're not really in the neocortex, like you said.
Right.
And so when I can co-regulate with a friend, and you can do this with a pet. This is why I always say, like, every animal is an emotional support animal. Like, snuggle up with your dog or your cat and just like breathe, and just, it takes 20 minutes to kind of reset your nervous system and settle down and go, oh, okay, you know what? I'm okay. So, yeah, got to have that support. And then also, after a breakup, please double down on self-care and just love the crap out of yourself. And what I tell people when they're in the rough spot, because I've been to the rough, where my body was shutting down. At the very least, take care of yourself like you're trying to keep a pet gerbil alive. You know what I mean? Like, water that thing, put some food in there, like at least do the bare minimum to
Sprinkle some
just take,
granola.
yeah, little granola bar, whatever you got to do, just stay alive, and that might be, getting outside and getting some sunshine, or like, showering, or things like this. But like, remember that you're an organism and you need to stay alive. And so just at least do that. But then also, connect with some people who can love you until you remember how to love yourself. This is the importance of having good friends that'll be there for you when you're just absolutely unraveling. So I have some questions that are great tools. I love these questions. And if people listening can take these questions and just say, all right, these are like new mantras for me, this is a new tool, I'm going to use this for the rest of my life, your life will improve. Like, I'm here to tell you, your life is about to get better. Ask yourself these questions every day. What am I feeling right now? A lot of people have no idea what they're feeling. And our feelings are like the check engine light for our soul, right? Our feelings are telling us what's going on. When we feel good, our needs are satisfied. When we feel bad, our needs are usually unsatisfied. So people who dissociated from their feelings usually in childhood, then learn how to do that in their adult life. If you're disconnected from feelings, you're disconnected from your needs, and you're flailing in life, and you're not going to be able to to have a satisfying life. So ask yourself these questions. What am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? Very simple questions. What am I feeling? What do I need? Because people, people are disconnected, and they don't know their feelings, they don't know their needs. And so the thing is, those feelings and needs will drive your bus, and they'll make you do some crazy stuff, right? So I think if you're aware of your feelings and your needs, you have a choice. How am I going to get my need for attention met right now? Am I going to choose some healthy way to connect with someone I love? If you're unaware that you have a need for attention, you're gonna post a picture of your ass on Instagram. You're gonna get the attention.
Yeah.
But it's not in a healthy way.
The visual that I just got was, it's kind of like either being the bus driver or like just being in the bus. Like,
yes. Yeah, hog-tied in the back. Feelings just driving you, fear, whatever's just taking you somewhere. Hey, where are we going? Shut up.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you're not aware of your feelings and your needs. Because people, like, we will get our needs met. Absolutely. And
Right.
this is, when kids aren't getting their needs met for connection or belonging or whatever, they'll join a street gang, whatever. It's meeting a fundamental need. No one joins a street gang because they think it's a good career opportunity, or like they're meeting basic human needs there, right? That aren't being met places where they probably should be met, in their families or whatever. So what am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? And then this is the doozy. This is tattoo worthy. What would I do right now if I loved myself?
Oof.
Right? Ooh, that's good. Love it. What would I do right now if I loved myself? Because you can kind of take a step back. It kind of, when I ask myself that question, it takes me out of whatever scenario, whatever story my brain is telling me, whatever the feelings, all that shit. I can step back to this objective place of just like, what would a person do who truly loved themselves? Themselves. Yeah. What would that look like? I love that
question so much. That's something. So I ask people something like, in a similar vein, and that's like, what would you tell your best friend to do right now in this situation? Because oftentimes it's something where it's like, well, hell no, I would be like, you're not doing, like, what are you thinking, kind of a thing. But meanwhile, while I'm in it and I'm living it, I'm like, but this, but that.
Yeah, but
yeah, I play the yeah but game. And so I love that. What would I do right now if I loved myself?
Yeah.
Like, that's like weighty in like a good way.
That's solid. And it steers you back towards, hey, self-love is kind of the answer. Self-care, self-protection, like your sense of self, because that's at the core of a lot of relationship problems, is self-abandonment.
Yeah.
And so being able to have this authenticity, this radical return to self of personal responsibility, that's huge. Personal responsibility, right? I think blame and shame are like the outie and the innie of not wanting to take responsibility for your life. Either blame is this like, it's your fault, there's nothing I can do about it. And shame is actually this, there's something wrong with me, it's my fault, and there's nothing I can do about it because I'm defective, I'm broken.
That is good.
And so in both cases, it's, I don't have to do anything. It's, I'm not responsible for my life. Right? Blame and shame are both get out of responsibility free tickets.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, blame and shame, I don't think really have any place in a relationship. And if you're spending time, if you notice you're having the same ass argument with your partner a lot, what you'll notice is a lot of people spend time playing the game called Find the Bad Guy. Whose fault is this? Let's blame somebody. What a fucking waste of time. Like, let's talk about, like, what are our needs? What do we actually need? Like, what do we both want and need? And how can we work together for a win-win solution? Right? This is huge. There's a lot of this like win-lose dynamic. People have this idea, I need to get my needs met and screw your needs, or I need to be right and you need to be wrong.
Yeah.
No, we're on the same team. That's what this relationship is. We're a team, right? And we're trying to both feel satisfied and loved and connected. Like, let's work together on that instead of throwing hand grenades at each other.
Yeah, over
So
the text message wall, over the
yes,
digital wall.
incoming. So the next thing I'll say along those same lines of just of self-love and self-care is this self-soothing activities as opposed to self-medicating. Self-medicating,
Yes.
I think we all know, is eat your feelings or drugs or alcohol or, blaze a path of destruction through the Tinder scene or whatever it is. Self-soothing, these are healthy things that you can do that just feel good. Taking a bath or calling a friend, listening to some good music. I mean, they say that the bridge between despair and hope is a good night's sleep. Like just self-care stuff that feels good. Self-soothing is such an important skill to have, especially for people who get hella emotionally dysregulated and then they're just loose cannons, just coming out the side of their neck, hurting people all around them, just crazy acting out. Like when you can recognize, oh, I'm in a shit spiral at this moment. What could I do differently to calm this down?
Yeah, what would I do if I love myself right now?
What would I do right now if I love myself? And the answer isn't go find the bad guy. The answer is, I'd put the fire out and take care of myself.
Yeah.
So self-soothing, huge. I work on that with clients all the time. And here's something that I think is kind of stage 2 of the grieving process of, moving through. Like first it just sucks and you feel it and you cry and you snot bubbles and ugly and it's terrible and granola. But then when you start to regain some consciousness, move back into your neocortex, I love putting pen to paper and doing some inventory. And this is kind of where the whole fixer picker thing evolved from, was from after breakups, I would crack my journal and write what worked, what didn't work, what was I feeling, what a list of fears, do a fear inventory, or how was I showing up in the relationship? Just write about it. What were the resentments? What was my fault? What was the other person's fault? Just do a postmortem, do a autopsy on the relationship, and not as a witch hunt, as a learning opportunity.
Right.
Where is there a place for me to grow right here? Because there's things that I can take care of, things in myself that I can work on, and then all the stuff that I want to blame the other person for, these like resentments that they did this all the time. A resentment is a missing boundary. That's all it is. So when I'm mad at somebody for, I can't believe what they did, like, that's probably because I didn't communicate a boundary. I didn't communicate my wants, needs, expectations. I didn't hold them accountable. I tolerated some bullshit and I continue to get it because I tolerated it. It's a missing boundary. And I got to take responsibility for that. It's easy to think that a resentment is evidence that someone else is terrible. Like, yeah, some people suck. And if you're dancing with them, like you hit the dance floor, like you gotta own part of that.
I love that.
So
There was something that was like, I was watching something the other day and it said, why do I keep choosing, this type of a person? And someone was like, well, there's lots of people attracted to you, or why do I keep attracting these kinds of people, like low effort people? And the response was that, like, well, you attract lots of people, but you're choosing the low effort people. And so, yeah, like what you said, it's like some people, but like you're the one that your verbiage you're the one choosing to go on the dance floor with them. Like you're the one that's the common denominator. Like you're the one that's doing the thing. And so this isn't to shame anyone or make anyone feel bad, but it's to bring awareness to the part that you're playing in the situation that you may find yourself currently in or just out of. And so, yeah, I didn't want to
yeah,
interrupt. Go ahead. Carry on.
no, that's good. I don't want to just monologue the whole time. This is good discussion. A thing that a little phrase that I've heard that I like it and it sounds kind of cool, but I worry about how harsh it might sound or offensive it might be to
Oh my
people. So
God,
I
I'm
don't know.
so excited. I'm so
Take it
excited.
with a grain of salt. It goes like this: if I'm not the problem, there is no solution.
Mm,
Right? Because if like everyone else is the problem, I can't fix that.
mm-hmm,
There's no solution to that.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
if I'm the problem, I have control over some part of that, And so
mm-hmm.
it's so important getting over someone is realizing that it's a 50-50 deal, right? And this is something that's hard for people to understand, that we date at our emotional level. People don't want to hear this. There is no dating up. There is no dating down. We date at our level, you know, and it might look different, you know, and so, and you know, the easy example is, you know, you have one partner that's this like raging alcoholic and the other partner that's the saintly codependent, and you're like, oh, well, you know, this guy's clearly the problem, and this woman is, God bless her, you know, she's great, but they're both sick. They're both they're both very sick. One looks a little shinier and more put together, but they're both sick people, right? So this is what's going on in relationships. Like, yeah, we date at our emotional levels in some way or another, and I think that this is important. I think that we are drawn into relationships because they are places where inherently we know we can heal or not heal, and then burn it all to the ground and then blame our partner. But it galvanizes us. It creates this opportunity. Yeah, I think that's a big part of why we are all drawn into relationship, because that is the place where we can heal. When I'm single, I'm the best thing that ever happened. But when I get into a relationship, that's when all my shit comes up, my fears and insecurities and blah, 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 my communication. I'm like, oh crap, I got to work on this. Mm-hmm. So yes, what can you do? What can you own? You know, how can you keep your side of the street clean? Because focusing on, you know, what the other person did, that's not helpful, you know? And so for anyone listening, if you go on a first date and someone is trashing their ex, just back away slowly. Get out of there. Yeah, because that's that you're talking to someone who can take zero responsibility for their own ass actions, and you're going to suffer the consequences of being around someone like that. So just get out. Get out. You know. Yeah, and especially like on a first date, like it's not the time to talk about how, you know, your ex was terrible and you were a victim. It's setting up a terrible.
They're crazy. Bond. That's one that people like to say a lot. They're crazy. They did.
My ex was crazy.
And like I've heard some stories, but yeah, like younger Johnna was like, oh, but then also as I started to become older Johnna, I was like, what the fuck did you do to make them do that? What the fuck did you do to make them climb through your window? Like,
yeah, you played some role in that.
Because yeah, like you said, like animals, when we're backed into a corner, like they wouldn't just do that. Like, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, penguins aren't out headhunting humans, you know.
Right, exactly.
You back one into a corner, you're gonna find out. And so, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think in relationships, again, because this is the person that we have assigned to meet our most important fundamental human attachment needs. Yeah. It becomes a life and death thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it gets very scary, and there's, you know, powerlessness and yeah, people do some crazy stuff. And so
I want to bring up that you mentioned everything in life is a tool, a weapon, or a distraction.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. I wanted to like quote that. It may have been Neil Postman in this book Technopoly, but it could not be. I don't know where I got that from. But for years, I've thought that everything, you know, like a cell phone could be a tool, a weapon, or a distraction. And yes, a relationship, a breakup, like whatever behaviors we're using can be a tool, can be useful. We can weaponize it and hurt people with it. It can just be a distraction. So take a look at your behaviors, your actions, your process after a breakup. You know, am I using tools? Am I using weapons? Or am I using distractions right now?
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So again, coming back to, you know, taking a look at yourself, not to blame or shame, but just to learn and heal and grow. Like that's. Living organisms have one purpose: to grow. Like that's what living things do. They grow. Anything that's not growing is dead. And so, you know, after a breakup, I'm not saying, you know, you need to grow because you're terrible. I'm saying you need to grow because you're human and it's time to grow. Like let's do this. And so perfect opportunity to take a look at what's going on with you in your relationship. And then also, how do you handle adversity? Right? Because people say adversity builds character. Some other people say that adversity reveals character. Ooh. Right? So when shit hits the fan,
I like that one. Yeah.
How do you act? Because like, you know, if everything in your life is buttery smooth, of course, yeah, I'm a wonderful person. But like when things suck, you know, when like, you know, like I shared with you this morning that, I live in the country of Panama. The whole country's on strike. There's roadblocks and there's like no gasoline in my province, and things are going crazy. My car broke down. My bike tire blew out, and there's like a lot of craziness going on. Can I be a decent human being now? Not when everything is smooth and everything is wonderful, you know? And so this is what you'll see during a breakup. Things are crazy.
Yeah.
Do you love yourself now?
I love that notion. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. And yeah, can I be a decent human now? That reminds me of something. So Ben Bergeron, he's a CrossFit coach, but he wrote this article, and one of the things he said in it is that integrity is who you are when no one can see or when no one's watching.
That's
And
right.
I'm like, I've always thought about that, because I'm like, yeah, like people say that adversity builds resilience, and people say that, like, you know, tough times like make you stronger, and I'm like, not necessarily. If you have maladaptive coping techniques and you're just over there distracting and numbing, then bad shit can happen to you and can keep happening to you, and that's not going to make you any stronger. That's actually going to make you weaker if you are doing this distraction. That's going to keep you stuck. And so yeah, I love what you said. Like, it's a matter of, like, you know, how do you respond? Like, what can you do? Like, how do you take that experience and use it as a tool to grow and to actually, yeah, like create change and, like, you know, um, empower yourself to put yourself back in the bus driver seat.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, it's a great opportunity, you know, like breakups. Yeah, they suck, but there's so much richness here for personal development, for growth, for healing, for understanding yourself, you know, learning about yourself, learning about the strength of, yes, your character, and also like your self-esteem. Because so this is, I remember a therapist told me this. She was explaining codependency. She was like, there's a lot of different definitions of codependency, by the way. It's this big nebulous thing. But one cute definition is, what you think of me is what I think of me. Right? She told me that, and I was like, oh damn, why are you yelling at me? You know, I felt attacked. But that's the thing, you know, we'll see that when people are like, oh, Adam's great. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, because I'm fabulous. But someone says, oh, Adam's an asshole. I'm like, you're right, I'm terrible. That's not a good way to live, you know? And so you'll notice this after a breakup, because a breakup presumably means someone doesn't want to be around you anymore, you know? And so your brain says, oh, this means I'm a terrible person. And then do you believe that or not? Right? Self-esteem is not a measure of, you know, how other people, you know, other esteem. It's not a measure of how other people like you when you're perfect and wonderful all the time. It's a measure of how much you love yourself when you drop the ball or whatever, when you're not perfect.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. A lot of people, like, you know, we need to be perfect, and oh, I want people to like me. But do you love yourself when you are at your most human, when you are vulnerable? Yeah, when you're not perfect, do you still love yourself? That's self-esteem. And that's the goal, you know, and you'll find out. You're like, my self-esteem is great. After a breakup, you're like, I'm trash, you know, like, okay, here's some room to grow.
I love these analogies that you keep giving us.
Yeah, I like words. I like metaphors and analogies and
yeah,
expressions and stuff.
If y'all are enjoying the way that Adam is phrasing things, definitely check out his website and also his social media. He'll be tagged in the description. But yeah, because this is like what you're seeing here is like what you like. You're now, after listening to this, going to read the blogs and the content like in this voice, because like that's what I do every time I see them. I'm like, this, and that's why I'm laughing so much, is because I'm like, no shit, like I'm it's the same person, which is really a cool and authentic transition there. So one thing that I wanted to ask, like we've talked about and like you kind of like started to alluding to it, like what happens when we don't want to get over them, right? Like what happens when, because we've talked about like all these
when you're
awesome
blindsided
ways, right? We talked about all these awesome ways, like how to get over it when it ends, and we're like, yeah, right, like we're done. But what about when you don't want it to end, when there was nothing wrong with the relationship, but they just break up with you, or they just like abandon or like ghost or whatever the situation may happen? And so yeah, like what do we do? What do we do in those situations?
Yeah, no, I had a woman reach out to me a couple of days ago, was in the same situation. She was like, you know, this was my person and everything was great. had no idea. She was like, yeah, we were definitely gonna spend our lives together, blah blah blah. And then just, he decided he didn't want to be there anymore. And she was like, what the hell was going on here? Just her reality kind of crumbled. And so yeah, you'll hear this, nothing was wrong with the relationship, everything was fine, and then my partner dumped me. And so the first thing I would point out is if your partner doesn't want to be with you, that means the relationship wasn't all fine, right? Like there was something going on there. There was some unspoken stuff going on. And the other thing is that I think what people do when they're like not ready to let go of a relationship, I think it's actually a healthy way to get your own closure and to feel a sense of power. Like I said, powerlessness sucks. And so if you're just like, oh, I got dumped and it's over, and like, there's nothing I could have done about it, that feels awful. And so I think when people are like, no, this can't be, and I don't want to get over this, and maybe I can fix it, I think it's important to like, have your own sense of closure with that when you're blindsided, to like hang on to it and wrestle with it for a little bit. And then when you're ready to let go of it, then it feels more like a choice that you made rather than, some affliction that happened to you in this state of powerlessness.
Own you, kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do I get over somebody who I don't want to get over? So there's another piece of that too, that I would say this is a vulnerability avoidance tactic that some people use, is this idea of the one that got away, or this perfect ex-partner that I had. I'll compare everyone to that forever now. It's kind of a way to keep one foot out the door. A lot of people are terrified of vulnerability. It's scary, this emotional exposure with another person. Like it's kind of terrifying, and vulnerability is the price of admission to a real relationship. It's the currency of a relationship. Like you have to be vulnerable and authentic with somebody. But people are so terrified of that rejection or the abandonment or whatever that they'll find ways to actually not show up all the way in a relationship. And so if you're hanging on to this idea of some person who, would have been your perfect soulmate or your forever or whatever, take a look at that for a couple of reasons. One is it could be an excuse to not love again. It could be armor-plated wall around your heart. It could be kind of a coping mechanism of like, oh, I'm not doing this again, and so I'm going to hang on to this idea of someone. The second reason I would say to look at that is just the very nature of regret. The idea that I would be happy if this hypothetical other thing would have happened, it's delusional. It's absolute like speculative nonsense, right? So I think regret is like insane. I think regret doesn't make any sense to me. It's completely hypothetical bullshit. And so please let go of this idea that your life would have been happened if only some other things would have happened. Like what is that? That's a fantasy. Yeah. That's a fantasy. So come back to reality. Yeah. Here's what's actually going on. Here's my actual life, and if I'm not with this person, it's for a reason, for sure. So, and that's a tough process to get to there. And so I'm not saying like, get over it. I'm not trying to be that guy, but I'm saying feel the pain, experience it, and then take a look inside and say, hey, am I using this as a tool, a weapon, or a distraction? Am I hanging on to this phantom X, this unicorn, this idea of someone? Am I using that as a weapon or a distraction now to keep me from actually loving and showing up in relationships? So uncomfortable questions.
Ooh, good stuff. And like heavy stuff, like that's not like lost on us either. Like we did not come to play in this conversation.
No.
Anytime you see our faces, this is not playtime. This is going to be a fun, real talk where you might feel like you were just attacked a couple times, but in a
Yeah,
loving
a little
way, in
bit.
a loving way for your growth. Like it's not,
Yes.
we're saying this shit not to make you feel like I said bad or shame you, like I mentioned earlier, but we're saying this because no one else is telling you this, because
Yes.
no one else is going to be this real with you. Because I think that we live in this time where we're all so like, oh well, that's like their business, oh well, like let me like, don't want to hurt their feelings, or like maybe they're not
Hmm.
ready, kind of a thing. And it's like we said, we're not trying to like force you to jump off the cliff. What we're
Yeah.
trying to do is make you aware of what your options are, because you might be standing on that cliff, you know, not even looking down to realize that, oh shit, I'm only like 5 feet off the ground, or I'm only like
Yeah.
3 feet, like five's still a little high. I'm only like a foot. Let's do that. I'm only like a foot off the ground. And so that's why we're here, like having this conversation today. And we've said a lot of shit. We have
A whole
said
lot.
a whole
Yeah.
lot of shit.
And
And
we could talk for another hour easy, I'm pretty sure.
easy. And yeah, that's
Yeah.
not lost on us either. So we want to give you a quick recap. And first of all, like I just shared, do what feels right for you. There isn't a one size fits all grieving process. Like Adam mentioned, you're not just going to go through this linear, like nice, neat, like, okay, I did it. Check. I grieved. It's something that
No.
like, it's messy as fuck. And yeah, like it's something where give yourself grace. um
Mhm.
we or Adam gave us like lots of awesome tools, and so make sure to pick the ones that work for you, to put those in your toolbox, try some out and see which ones work for you. Another thing that Adam had said we wanted to mention, so isolation is the worst. Uglier things get uglier in the dark. Like, yeah, I'm reading like your words here. Shame thrives, grief prolongs, and you just lost a major connection, so get reconnected. Not, if it's something where, like you said, like as animals we need to like step away, like don't deny yourself that, like give yourself time. And at the same time, don't let it be something where like weeks and months go by and you haven't like seen the light of day and like reached out to a
Yes.
friend. Something you mentioned earlier that I want to mention and refer back to was find people that will love you until you remember how to love yourself again.
Hmm.
And I got like all the feels and like goosebumps because I was like, mm, that part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Community
Got
is,
to have friends, got to have a support group.
yeah.
Absolutely vital. It's a need.
Yeah. We also talked about self-compassion, showing yourself love, uh, showing your nervous system that you're not actually dying. Um, and yeah, taking this time to process and to use your words, or whomever's words they were. How is this relationship, or how are you using this relationship and this experience, and how are you using this person as a tool, as a weapon, or as a distraction? And so yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. And also, of course, if you do need to reach out to someone other than your friends and family, we are coaches. There are also therapists that you can, reach out to, because like we mentioned earlier, like community is not, reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of strength. And so
Absolutely.
yeah, we did not get to where we are today with all these technological advances sitting alone by ourselves in isolation. And so yeah, community is so important. And this opportunity, this breakup, like not being able to get over them, is really an awesome opportunity. Like Adam said, like an enriched time to look at yourself and be like, oh, what can I do with this? Like, what is this teaching about me? Like, ask yourself those 3 questions that Adam shared. Like, do you want to go over what they were one more time?
Yeah. What am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? And what would I do right now if I loved myself?
So good.
Gems.
So
Yeah.
good. And play this back if you need, share it with a friend. Like we said, lots of good stuff. Adam, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
I wanna have a little feel good story to go out with here. I was with someone for about 5 years, and I mean we were young, but I was also like, this is the one. Let's spend our lives together. And one day she felt otherwise, and she was like, I can't do this anymore, and just vanished. She took half our stuff, left me with the cats, and just was gone. And And I was hurt. I was pretty hurt. And what sucked though was the next 6 months. I mean, we were like this couple. We were this, everyone kind of knew us. We were this magical, cute little couple. And so for the next 6 months, everywhere I went, people were like, "Oh, where's Alicia?" And "Oh, we're not together anymore." And then I would get this, "Oh man," like, people were like, "Oh, that sucks," or I never thought you to, or "Man, sorry to hear that," or I just got all this like sympathy and this like all these awkward ass conversations with people, because I'm guessing this was probably pre-Facebook, so like nobody knew, so I had to tell people to their face, and every response sucked, and this is drawn out for months. And so there was this shop at the beach that her and I used to go to regularly when we went to the beach, and there was this cute couple, and the woman was from Malaysia, and they would go back once a year or twice a year and get a whole bunch of like handmade cute wooden giraffes and bamboo wind chimes and shit. Anyway, we would go in there and buy stuff every time we went to the beach. And so I go to the beach by myself, and I'm like, I'm healing and recovering from this breakup. And I go to the shop, my first time going there without her and trying to have a new experience with it. And so the sweet little Malaysian lady, she was like 4'8" or something, she's at the desk, and I'm buying a couple things. And she asked, "Where is the girl?" And I said, "We're not together anymore." And she looked at me and smiled, didn't miss a beat. And she said, "Life is a long journey," and just smiled. And I get goosebumps every time I think about that moment, because I know she learned that in some village from her grandma, who learned it from her grandma. Like, that was wisdom. That was this gift that came to me, where she didn't give me any of this pity or crap or this horrible thing happened. She said, "Life is a long journey," and she smiled. And I get choked up. Something inside of me just knew I was all right, knew that I was going to be fine, and that she was right, that life is a long journey, and we survive breakups, and life is beautiful. So that's my message to you all.
That made me tear up that time. I'd actually heard that story before, full transparency. But yeah, that time it like made me cry. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with everyone. Yeah. Woo. I think we're all gonna need to take a break after this. Hit the pause button, like go find a Kleenex. Yeah. So okay. Well, where can they find you and what do you have going on?
So Instagram at FixerPicker. I'm on some of the other social medias, but like Instagram is my main jam. I put a kind of micro blog, my captions and quotes and memes and videos and lives and stuff. So I do a bunch of stuff on there daily. FixerPicker.com, as you mentioned, /blog. I have a free blog. I put out a fiery article every Saturday, all about healing and growth and self-discovery and all relationships, all this stuff. I have a free relationship quiz on there. I just love trying to get content out to the people by any means necessary. So check those things out. What's going on for me? I'm a relationship coach. I got a pretty solid workload right now, and I have a waiting list, which is like a good problem to have, I guess. But I want to help more people. And so I've started this year doing kind of Fix Your Picker Academy, I'm calling it, where I do classes and workshops. And I did one last weekend with a friend, and just trying to reach people. And so, keep your eye out on my Instagram for announcements on whatever upcoming classes I have. I'm actually writing a chapter in a book. There's a collaboration effort where a bunch of amazing coaches and therapists and writers and researchers are all putting together this book called On Healing. Tentatively, that's what we're calling it. Should be coming out in spring of next year, hopefully. But super stoked on that. Yeah, I don't want to leak too much details, but it's going to be fire for sure. Yeah, and I've been on the Adult Child podcast with my friend Andrea. I've been on there a couple of times. If you want to listen to some more of this, and yeah, and I was on a prior episode with Johnna. Was it episode 13? You remember?
Episode 13.
It was early on, and so I'm around.
It was You Are Not Your Trauma Response. It's a really good
Ooh,
episode.
yeah, that's right.
It's a really
So
good episode. It was one of the early ones. So this is, yeah, we're on like 64 now, and that was, yeah, 13. So
nice to be back.
yeah,
Nice to be
awesome
back.
to
And
have you.
yeah.
So yeah, thank you for all that. And thank you for your time, sharing your wisdom, sharing your stories, dropping your knowledge bombs. And yeah, I'll make sure to link everything in the description so you can just tap there and easily access it below. Make sure to follow Adam if you're not already. You can sign up for blog alerts, I believe, right? Like you can get notified whenever you get a blog post.
Yeah. It's I have a bio link on my Instagram, and that you can subscribe in there, and you'll get an email every Saturday when I publish.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I will link all that so you can tap to it, get easy access to him. And please do, if you got anything from this conversation today, make sure to favorite it, make sure to share it with someone who would also benefit from learning about why they can't get over them, and share some shit that, you know, we are sharing with you so that you can do it with them. Remember that on Wednesday of this week, we are going to be asking some questions about relationships over on Instagram at Hey Johnna Renée. They'll be in my stories because we want to hear about your experience and, you know, your trying to get over them and your breakup process, so that then on Friday, whenever we go live for the after party, which will be at 5 p.m. Eastern, August 26th, we will be able to actually answer your questions in real time. And so if you want to ask a question on Wednesday, if you want to join us Friday, so we can kind of go back and forth in the comments, maybe we can bring you on screen if you're feeling frisky. And so we can really try to support, like Adam said, you know, his time is valuable. So this is an awesome opportunity to get a 2-for-1 where we can both work with you and actually you can kind of cut the line is what you're doing. Like you're kind of able to like cut the line and get like a little sample at Sam's Club or Costco.
Exactly.
So make sure to definitely take advantage of that. So again, questions on Wednesday and then after party live on Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do slide into our DMs. They are open, and we look forward to seeing you on the screens. All right, bye everyone. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Adam. This has been
Thanks for having
awesome.
me.
All
We'll
right,
do it again for sure.
please. All right, bye.